of the Relieving Anxiety with CBT mini course. My name is Chris Piercy, but you know that because you already watched video 1. If you haven't, go and watch it now. So today's video is all about control. So in our lives, control falls into 3 categories. We can either control things, we can't control things, or they're things which we have some control over. So I'm going to cover the things we have some control over just to get it out of the way to start with. So for example, that's playing in a tennis match. Neither opponent has complete control over whether they win or lose the match. They just have control over their part. So things we have some control over gets split anyway. So we either control things or we don't control things. The things we can control, what are they? Our thoughts, our actions. Literally that's it. Nothing more, nothing less. I mean, you can break those thoughts and actions down into kind of smaller parts, but ultimately your thoughts and your actions encompasses the whole thing. So let's keep it simple. What do we not control? Literally everything else in the known universe. There's so much more in the world in the universe that we don't control compared to what we do control. But we like to think, or we don't like to think, but we do think that we control a lot more than we actually control. And it's that misunderstanding that causes a huge amount of anxiety, because the things that we often worry about, we have no control over whatsoever. And if we have no control whatsoever over it, how are we supposed to do anything about it to make ourselves worry less? We can't. So the weather, whether their train's going to be on time, what people think about them, what other people's opinions on the world are, how busy somewhere's going to be when they go out, whether they're going to see someone when they're out. You know, I could go on and on and on. There are so think about all those different things. Nothing you can do about them, but they are things that people like to worry about. So what are we going to do about this misunderstanding about control and what it is? Well, in order to do that, what I'd like you to do is to, if you don't have it in front of you already, is to find the thing that you wrote down yesterday. You know, I ask you to do that kind of brain dump about the things, how things have been going for you lately and the things that you've been worrying about. Get that in front of you now, pause the video if you like, and I'll catch you in a second. So part of what I asked you to do is to write down the things that have been upsetting you lately. So I want you to kind of look at them. Maybe they've been written down separately. If they're not kind of separated from the whole thing, maybe it's just a splurge in a paragraph, that's absolutely fine. But if you can kind of write down the things that you're worried about as kind of headlines, just with like a line between them, what I'd like you to do is just to stop and ask yourself, do I have any control over this situation? This is the question that I alluded to yesterday as being the one that can just kind of halve anxiety. Do you have any control over this situation? And what I mean by that is, if you look at those kind of headline things about things that have been upsetting you lately, is that situation, is those circumstances, is that your thoughts or is that your actions? If it isn't, then you do not have control over that situation at all. So it's a very simple, yes, I have control, or no, I do not have control. If it is in your control, then you can follow up by saying, can I do anything about this right now? If you can, then go and do the thing. You know, it's in your control and you can do something about it right now, so go and do the thing. If you can't control it, then distract yourself. Get it out of your head and think about something else. I mean, I realise that's a really blasé statement for me to say, so allow me to give you an example. Going back to yesterday's example, where we had someone who you've texted a couple of times and they haven't responded, and that's causing anxiety and making you feel not very good about yourself, is when someone texts back in your control? No, absolutely not. It's not your thoughts, it's not your actions. So no, it's not in your control. But you might say, well, I could text them again, and you know, then that might make them respond. Yes, absolutely, you could. You could try and force something to happen, but it might annoy them. It might make them text like even further down the line. It might make them text back straight away, but it might have the reverse effect. You don't have control. They are an individual person, they have free will, they have their own thoughts and actions, and they're in control of whether they text back and when they text back, regardless of what your actions are. So in this example, this is going to be quite blasé, but it's kind of just the most direct way of dealing with something like this. So if you've texted someone a couple of times and they haven't responded, if that thing comes and you go, why haven't they texted back? Say, you can just stop and say to yourself, this isn't in my control. And when you, 5 minutes later, you go, why haven't they texted back? This isn't in my control. This isn't in my control. This isn't in my control. I mean, it's bore anxious thoughts to death. Just keep telling them the same thing. Play the same old broken record that it isn't something that is in your control. And then go and distract yourself, do something else. This isn't in my control. Distract yourself, do something else. Rinse, repeat, rinse, repeat. But what do I mean by distract yourself? Well, do something which makes you happy. Do something which is going to occupy your mind. So this is going to be completely different for every single person, but you could phone someone, keep your mind distracted by kind of sort of connection with other people. Engage in one of your hobbies. If you haven't got a hobby, maybe start a hobby. You could go out for a walk, you could do some exercise, you could bake a cake, you could anything which like focuses your mind on a different task, keeps you out of your own head. That's a distraction. I'm sure you can think of loads already. Now in this newfangled age of digital Facebook and Instagram photograph, I'm being an idiot. Social media is possibly not the best distraction out there. If you're going to find yourself diving into TikTok or YouTube or Facebook or Instagram, they've got really clever algorithms which keep you scrolling and scrolling, doom scrolling. You know what I'm talking about. You've done it. Maybe that is something which helps you feel a sense of connection with people, perhaps. I would strongly suggest that doom scrolling is not going to be a good distraction, because whenever you ever doom scrolled and gone, oh, I'm really glad I did that. That's made me feel really good about myself. Also, no, I'm not your supervisor, but I would say that drinking drugs, probably not the best distraction either, for obvious reasons. You have completed half of the exercise required for today. The second half's quite easy, I think. I would like you to write down at least 5 different ways in which you are going to distract yourself. Maybe a few different examples for different times of day, because, for example, if you like going out for a run, you're not going to do that if your mind's making you feel anxious thoughts at 3 a.m. So different ones for different times of day, at least 5, so that you know what you're going to do when that question comes into your head of all these things, and you go, do I have any control of this? And then you say, no, I don't have any control of this. What's your distraction going to be? What's the thing that you are going to do to keep your mind healthy and occupied? That is it for video 2. Video 3 is available right now. Go and watch that whenever you feel ready to, and we'll be talking about cognitive distortions. See you then.